I definitely have questions around, when I say I have questions about my own approach to all of this, where I know that the things that we're doing are super positive and super helpful, and I really am encouraged by the things that you're saying, that you're almost giving them a bank account that they can draw from when they get older, no matter how far down the path they decide to go. Um, I think I do question, the level to which I should engage with the ideology and confront it, I guess. Um, I've instinctively kind of shied away from it because of the backfire effect, where, I remember when I was a kid and I was a teenager, and I got involved with actually Orthodox Christianity, which, to share a little bit more background, the cult that we were involved with was a cult that was kind of hiding in the Orthodox Christian church. So it was a very odd situation. And I remember when I was converting to Orthodoxy as a teenager, the church that I was converting to was kind of culty, and my parents were really frightened. They thought I was joining a cult, and in many ways they were right. And I can tell you, there is very little they could have done short of a full on intervention, where somebody like gets kidnapped and deprogrammed. There's probably nothing they could have done or said to me that would have stopped me from believing the things that I wanted to believe, or joining the community that I wanted to join. And it had a profound effect on my life. Uh, there are things obviously that were negative, because I ended up joining an abusive cult. There were things that were positive. You can't really untangle it all. I've learned a lot, but the point here is that, there is little that I think I could say to her right now that would ever change her mind. But at the same time, it's like I struggle with, well, maybe I should say more and be more transparent about what I actually think, so that I'm at least saying it, and that at least she maybe can come back to some of those things. But it always feels like it's running this huge risk of alienation, when the most important thing right now is connection. Anyway, all that to share that I really do struggle with what what to talk intellectually with her about. Um, but but in terms of not getting sucked into my own gender black hole, where everything becomes about that, that's really where the mindfulness practice and, the occasional psychedelic, journey has been very helpful.
These questions that you raised come up several times a week for me in conversation because since I've been out there talking about these issues for the last couple of years, a significant portion of the people who come to me for therapy are ROGD parents. On top of that, I have a consulting practice for people who either aren't looking for therapy or they're not here in Oregon, so I can't provide therapy for them, but I do have my doors open to people who just want to pick my brain and get my honest opinion on what's going on in their situation. So I talk to parents like you all the time who have these very questions, and I feel like maybe we could, I don't know, not that this is role playing, that's not how I want to frame it, but that this is like a little sample of what one of those
Hmm.
conversations might look like, because so many families are navigating this and asking those exact questions that you are, Alan. So I think it's actually really good that you're going there, and let's go there a little bit. This question, should I say more, right? And navigating that sort of tightrope walk, that balance where you're having moments of connection with your kid. That is the most important thing. And some of the best books on this subject, like Hold On to Your Kids and The Collapse of Parenting, which are in my bookshop, by the way. You can support the show by getting books through Amazon affiliate links at sometherapist.com/bookshop. I have a whole recommended reading list there, recommended reading for ROGD parents right after the section of authors who've been featured on the show. So check out those books on that reading list. But yeah, some of the best books that parents are using to support themselves through this time are more about that connection, right? From an attachment lens and also a lens of appropriate degrees of authoritativeness in the parent child relationship. So, at the same time, it feels like there's this ticking time bomb. Your kid is however many years from turning 18, or maybe they're over 18 already, and they're they're on a path that leads toward medicalization, or maybe they're already starting to medicalize. So there is a sense of urgency that parents have about feeling like they need to kind of pull their kid out of it and get them to see from your own perspective. And yet here you have this dual perspective on this, Alan, because you were that kid once. You were a young adult in a cult, and there was nothing anyone could have done to get you out of it. So let's talk about this. So these questions that come up for you when you're thinking about, should you tackle the issue more directly, um, walk us through whatever you're willing to share, of course, without compromising your family's privacy. But what are some of those moments of tension like for you? What are the choices that you find yourself facing with regard to what to say or not say?
Yeah, like there's so many instances when this can come up, right? Like for example, we've set very strict rules around the internet, and um, part of my daughter's descent into the RODG or ROGD cult has been via the internet. She had a friend who identified as transgender, and that's what kind of got her into it. Unbeknownst to us, she had watched something, probably thousands of YouTube videos. We didn't know this was going on. As soon as we found out, we pulled the plug on it, but it was too late, and that was all it took. And she, from that point on, has identified as a boy. Um, so we restrict the internet, and there's a lot of arguments around that where she's upset that we've taken the internet away, and she's like, why are you doing this? And it's like, well, there's just a lot of really dangerous ideologies out there, a lot of kind of online cults, and we've seen, and it's also not good for brain development, blah blah blah. But I'm not directly saying, well, it's because you're just going to get sucked into more trans activists videos. So that's an area where I haven't been direct with her. And it's a question, should we directly say that this is why? So that's one example. Uh, I can say something where, one thing that we did do together is we listened to the witch trials of J.K. Rowling, and I think that was good for her to hear. Um, for your audience members who haven't heard it, J.K. Rowling, author of Harry Potter, she got in a lot of she got a lot of backlash because she was posting things on Twitter about her perspective on gender ideology, which she's very very critical of what's going on. And anyway, there's a great podcast series, The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling, where it really gets into the whole history of gender ideology and J.K. Rowling's perspective. So I think that was a really good thing that we did together. That was actually touching on this subject. Um, but kind of from a third party where J.K. Rowling was talking about what her thoughts about it, and then my daughter and I could discuss it a little bit, but without I wasn't coming down too hard on it, but at least we could have a conversation about it. I think that was a positive thing to do. But actually getting into the nitty gritty of how gender ideology is an online cult and kind of explaining its dynamics and all of that, like I haven't really gone there because of my concern that it's just going to alienate her.